my fear as a heart type is to betray myself.
What you just said, that's a heart center statement. I'm this kind of person now.
Yeah.
That's how it is in the heart center. If you're heart center first, anything you do gets filtered through that lens. Like, I'm this kind of person. I have to integrate this into my sense of self.
I feel like the heart types are over-indexing shame and the heart last are under-indexing. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little bit like the instinct stacking when it's like in the middle. Not that we have it all figured out, but there's more of a right using of it.
Yeah.
The Big Hormone Enneagram.
Let me lay it on the line. I got a little freakiness inside. Let you know that the man has got to deal with it.
I'm John Lekovich, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 Trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 Trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing-1, 963 Trifix.
Like and subscribe on Apple and Spotify, and leave us a review. If you want to support the show with a donation, you can find us on Venmo at Big Hormone and paypal.me/Big Hormone.
All right. Welcome back to the Big Hormone Enneagram Show.
We're all sick. We're all
tired.
Drained of life force.
Where are we coming live from?
Systems are weak.
Harlem. Coming live from Harlem.
We are souls fastened to a dying animal.
Yeah.
Can someone just check the audio just to make sure that it's not bad?
In the group?
Yeah, just from their phone.
Can someone pull up the group?
Pull up the group feed. And if anyone's listening, make a comment. How does it sound?
I'm not running for president now.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
All right. All right.
All right. Let's just say all right.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the Heart Center, right? And it being heart last.
So. Yeah.
And
we can make it like a group discussion so everybody joins in. I know Josh has some opinions.
Yeah.
We have some heart types here who would like to join that conversation.
Right? Yeah. So anyway, the last episode we did, Alexander brought forward new observations about being heart last and kind of understanding more about what that meant in terms of last in a trifix order. And so on this podcast, I'm the sole heart type with these heart last body freaks. And, finally somebody got it. And so Alexander has been sharing with Emeka and David what it means to be a heart, what the heart does and what it means to consult at last. And so we've been exploring identity and image and what the heart is. And I don't know, it's been kicking off a lot of thoughts. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if anybody had anything to say about that.
Well, first, I wouldn't have framed it that we finally got it. But that's fine. Frustration heart type can frustrate with the heart type. I don't know. My kind of not plan, but hope, I guess, was to just kind of have a group discussion because we have a good variance here. We have a bunch of heart lasts as per usual in the world. We have 3 core heart types. We have a 4 and 2 3s. And then we have 3 heart middles with Courtney Kaisa and Sarah Simon. So I think that, we can kind of kick off a conversation around that, around the idea of taking in new experiences and filtering your experience is a body word, but taking in your new experiences and impressions and perspectives and filtering it through your identity, adding to that identity, subtracting from it. What does this mean about me? What does this not mean about me? How do you update your sense of self? That has at least been my processing with so far. That has at least been my processing with understanding the significance of the heart center. I think we could maybe kick it off that way.
Yeah, and I'd also add, identity from this point of view is not the things you think about yourself or the kind of labels you attach to yourself. Like, from the point of the heart center, identity starts as a kind of a feeling sense of self. And, we talked about how values and things like that stem from that resonance with self or not, and how you can be more or less in touch with that sense of identity or filtering your experience through that feeling of identity. And so, it's not like, oh, I identify with being male and da-da-da-da-da. It's like an inner emotional felt sense. And so often it sounds like the experience of being heart last is that you might do stuff and only retroactively maybe feel shame or say like, oh, that wasn't me. Like I wasn't really, that relationship wasn't me, or that job wasn't me, or that experience or doing that or trying that. Like that doesn't resonate with who I am. And actually, when I get down into it, I kind of feel embarrassed about it or ashamed of it in some way, but it's not quite, I'm kind of shaping or getting clear of the sense of myself almost as like a reaction to my experiences, rather than using that as the kind of whatever the fucking front part of a boat is. It is like cutting through.
Steering.
Yeah.
I'm curious, the heart seconds, like what is your impression of the heart lasts? Kaisa? Sarah?
Kaisa might have to get up.
You need a mic? Or Sarah?
Well, I'll say maybe to even add. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what's your impression of the heart lasts as a heart second?
I'll say even to like add to, I don't know, things to consider or whatever. Actually, forgot. It literally just escaped me. So I'll interrupt when it comes back.
Anybody want to talk?
Yeah, anybody have anything to say?
Oh, got it. Okay. It came back. Is that shame? I guess I'm kind of realizing how kind of disconnected I feel from shame. Not in that I feel embarrassed of myself plenty. Sure. But there's, shut up. But there's a sense that like, I'm seeing the value of shame in, as it relates to the heart center, because in a certain way, feeling shame is feeling how you have like betrayed your sense of self. And yeah, I guess I hadn't considered that before. I feel identified with my perspectives and like my opinions, and I know myself on like a very base body level, but there's a certain sense that when I have like strayed from where my center should be on a heart level, in an image level, on an identity level, there's a delay there in feeling shame that I'd actually like to be more in contact with, because that is very centering.
Yeah, because like you're, as a heart last, you're filtering things through comfort, right? And then if it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But you're not, like a part of being like a 4 is I'm always preciously tending to that sense of, is this me or not? And to a point where I limit myself from experiencing things. But a counter version of that is being heart last or something, maybe whatever. But it's like you're doing stuff and then being like, all right, this is not really in sync with what's like real in me in some way. Is that track?
Yeah.
Right. Anybody want to say anything?
Sure. Yesterday, we were up in this like very fun club, and because all the music was there very loud, I got into the mode of like engaging with like heart and body rather than head, and I started intensely experiencing, like in moment to moment, these directions where I could go. And there was these senses of tiny heartbreaks every time I didn't go where I felt like my life energy kind of wanted to move. And I feel like I was listening to that, like actually listening to that and following it and taking that space there, even when it felt scary. And it actually left me feeling very good about myself. And having that sense of self, it doesn't actually matter so much what others think. I was being true to myself in that way. That's what it feels like.
That's an interesting question. I was thinking about it because I was just watching your guys' episode with Joseph on the Order of the Centers, which was really great. And Louis and I were talking about it yesterday on the train, and I don't know, like, I'll tell you my heart sense of it, like growing up without having all these words for it. I think I come from a predominantly like self-pres social self-pres 937, self-pres social, and then probably heart last family, like as most of the world is. And my sense was I was different in the sense where people told me I was like more sensitive, or I felt spacier. People, you're a space cadet. Like there was all of my aunts. My mom is like one of 7 kids. They really love watching like murder mysteries and like who did it and like and like reading these books, like following all the clues. And I just didn't really get a sense of, I guess, identity from that, or didn't feel like I was seen in that, or that was interesting to me. And I felt like deficient in that way. I remember having a conversation when I was really, really young, wanting to be a cinematographer because they were just vibes, right? Like the angle of camera, like, and that loving these movies that had such like a shallow depth of fields, and it gave like this feeling. I wanted to make music videos when I was younger because they didn't have to make sense. Like they were just about vibes. And in a way, it's like now having this terminology for it, I feel myself absorbing 9, but also the 9-3 thing where it's like, I guess, yeah, like how will this look? How does it go along with how I want to be seen? And like 3 being, attachment in the heart center, it's lost. It's just lost. And then the head comes later, which is 7, which is bonkers sometimes. But sometimes it really does just feel like I have all these impressions, and then sometimes there's just a wonderful moment when I can make sense of it. But it definitely feels delayed. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting head last perspective too.
I guess the 2 things I would say is listening to your description of shame, Alexandra. I would say maybe as a heart middle, I feel like the heart types are over-indexing shame and the heart last are under-indexing. And so it's a little bit like the instinct stacking when it's like in the middle. Not that we have it all figured out, but there's more of a
like a playground,
right using of it, like and so that's what I notice.
Less
like
neurotic.
Interesting.
I think the other thing that I would say is what I'm hearing in this conversation is it's almost like where sensitivity lies, like where I can feel is that like my body sensitivity is the lowest, like in terms of physical environment, how it's affecting me. But there is an emotional sensitivity that is turned up, that I guess I'm hearing through your comments that heart last. Yeah, there's just like a lack of sensitivity in that area.
Yeah. Josh has been stewing.
Kind of tired. Let me just head last. I need to load this thing. Let's see. The listening to the Heart Last episode you guys did, really, it brought up a lot for me because, first of all, it made me kind of realize how blind like the Enneagram world itself is to the heart center, and it kind of, let's see, not that I was like, oh, nobody's ever understood me, but I felt like I kind of felt something like that, it was like, whoa, heart last people haven't until really now really grappled with a sense of what the identity and image thing really is, and that, just to give you a really concrete example. So I've been going through I don't know, a pretty hard time existentially, and wondering what the direction of my life is, which is a thing that visits me often, and that itself is anchored in the heart center, in the sense of what's the direction of my life that will be most me, most true to me. If I take this path or that path, let's see, which of the 2 or 3 or 5 paths that I'm considering is the one that's most optimally suited to the expression of my full potential, as a 3. And there's a way that I also am very sensitive to any kind of thing that I would have to do that would bring about a self-abandonment. So for example, marketing myself more to founders and investors as a coach, that's currently my thing, or that's how I'm making money. And I just fucking hate having to market myself in that way because I don't really care, about the way that people typically market themselves to that community. Not that I have disdain for that community and just like as people, you know what I'm saying? But like, there's a way that talking about business and productivity and things like that, it's not who I am. And so writing a blog post about it, writing a LinkedIn post about it, it feels like to summon myself to do that would be to betray myself. And I was talking to my mom and sister, who I think are both heart last, and their response was like, "You got to get over that,"
Well, they're also SPSO, right?
And they're SPSO. That's right. Yeah. And it just really made me. I was like, okay, I hear you. You're right. Like that would be very practical of me to just start doing that from a business point of view and like a life sustaining point of view, but I just can't. And I won't. I just won't. And it's not because I don't want to or I don't have the energy to, or because I don't think it's a good idea. It's because of this identity thing. It's like it's not who I am. And so, one of the other things about this is I feel very strongly that we should decouple the word emotion from the heart center. I think that emotion is a three-centered process. And there's a really good book I recommend people read called How Emotions Are Made. By Lisa Feldman Barrett. And what is talked about in that book is how an emotion is basically you have a somatic experience. Like in the book, they talk about, for example, being at the airport and watching your lover come off the plane and you've been waiting for them. And you have a somatic experience that you label in that moment as excitement. And the same exact somatic experience in a different context you would label as anxiety, just because. Let's say, if a lion was chasing you or something. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that an emotion is basically, from Lisa Feldman Barrett's point of view, with adding my own thing, like a somatic experience that gets filtered through your sense of self and then labeled with using the mental center with an emotion word. Right. And it requires all three centers. To have an interpretation of what that feeling is. And so the same somatic experience from a 7 might they would call it excitement. The same somatic experience from a 6, they might call it anxiety. And that's because of how they're filtering it through their sense of identity. What they're allowing themselves, what their sense of self allows them to think they're feeling. You know what I'm saying? So all this to say, the heart center really is, it's like, experiences are bubbling up in you, like from the fountain of the void or whatever your body. And the heart center is this framing device that says, I'm allowing this or that into my identity or not. And let's see if there's anything else. I think I'm kind of tired, so I'm going to peter out here. But period for now. And
Period.
Yeah.
My favorite Joshism. Just say his punctuation.
Going off that, I think you're right about emotion. I think feeling is a heart center thing. And I think there's a difference between feeling and emotion. I think feeling has, the way I frame it is like, emotion is based on your states of self-regulation or perception of self-regulation. You're like emotion would be like, either like, hell yeah, she's into me, or I'm imagining she's into me. Like I'm getting the reward of like my sexual instinct, or I'm imagining my ego as one that would be attractive or something, like I'm evaluating and then having an emotion based on that. But like feeling is more about like a direct contact with your heart center. Yeah. And, yesterday, Courtney and I were talking about shame and talking about like shame is more like the lower, how would you put it? Like I don't know if you want to take the mic and talk about it, but the shame is like kind of it's the response to being out of alignment with your felt sense of identity. And the thing that knows the felt sense of identity is what we call conscience. And it's like consciousness in the head center, but it's in the heart center. And it's not conscience like, this is your conscience, like, don't do the bad thing. It's not a moral thing. It's a character. Not character is even too moral. It's like, is this me or not kind of a thing. And even in the Gurdjieff, I mean, the remorse of conscience is like a big deal.
I thought she wasn't here.
Yeah, where did you go?
She went to the store.
Just for the podcast, a self-pres blind 7 DJ just jumped in with a
Oral
vape.
sevens.
I gotta put a vape in my mouth.
The Enneagram's so real, you know?
We were having an interesting conversation, like back to your point around the difference between emotions and feelings and certain emotions. And from my perspective, shame is really interesting in contrast to fear and anger in the body and the mind centers, because I don't think you can feel shame without a thought. Like there has to be a story or a thought that there's something wrong with you in order for shame to arise. Whereas I think fear and anger have a much more somatic, can spontaneously arise somatically. They can also be driven by thoughts, but not necessarily. And so this idea that it's like a cognitive emotional loop, shame, I started thinking about like whether that means by definition it's a distortion of personality, or actually it's sort of intrinsic to the human experience. Like it would, whether you'd have shame, even like you had a felt sense of yourself that wasn't anchored in personality, would shame still arise? And I think that's where you and I came to. I think it would have a different flavor. It would be more not coming from a place of deficiency, but it would just be coming from a place of, I have a felt sense of myself that I won't betray. And to me, that would be the high side of the heart center.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that like my fear as a heart type is to betray myself. Like that is like what I'm neurotically trying to not like just be myself, you know, and like that sense of betrayal of self. Like when that happens, it's just like you just want to obliterate yourself, you know.
Drama, but it's fine.
It's not dramatic. Yeah. Anyway. Maybe we got shit to add.
I'll say just one concrete example to make it real is like, you know, let's say that you have a sense of self that like you're devoted to your girlfriend or spouse, whatever, and then you walk into a place and you feel attraction for someone else. It's like, do you allow that into your image or not? And do you like the acting on it? It's like if let's put it this way. Not that like if your heart last, you would just do that because you don't have a heart, you know what I mean? But it's like if your heart first, the first kind of thing that goes through your mind is it's not who I am. It wouldn't be integrous with myself. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like because it fits into my mental framework of what values I have chosen to believe, or because of I don't know, whatever. It's like it's like that's not who I am kind of thing. Yeah.
In the conversation about shame, I'm thinking too, like a lot of definitions of shame talk about it specifically related to the community, right? And so shame is a evolutionarily like useful feeling, because if you do something so shameful, you know, you'll get kicked out of the community and you won't have people around, all these things. So it's useful in that way. It's always framed in the sense of like who you are within a group. And I think that having heart, I mean, heart will save the world in the sense where Heart Last has gotten us to places where team love has gotten us to places where with the head, you can rationalize anything. You can rationalize exploiting people for, you know, you can rationalize. Yeah, exactly. This is David's job here. so having that framework, right? It's not even like a mental framework. It's just kind of like a felt. It's not even moralistic either, like in the body way. It's just kind of this idea of maybe your role in community is what
Well,
I'm
I think
hearing.
a distinction needs to be made between like social shame and intrapersonal shame, like internal
okay.
shame,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is like the shame about your own relationship with yourself.
Okay.
And because I mean, I think social shame is more like when we're not having that felt sense of self, we'll rely on the outward guidance of how we need to be. And I think that people who are more connected to themselves can risk or tolerate more social shame
Right.
to do their own thing, you know? But God, what the fuck was my point? There was some other point I was getting to. But yeah, that's that. Oh, so, you know, one way to think about it is, and Josh, I'd like to hear your thoughts, you know, in your developmental view of centers, you know, when the kid starts to recognize that they have a self that is being paid attention to by another, and then there is good attention, bad attention, and no attention. This, you know, the wounding that happens, or let's say the capacity of the caregiver to attune to the self of the infant, and their struggles in there, like that parent capacity is the template for what the kid can take in to begin to relate to themselves in that way. And so if that's been disrupted or fragile or shitty somehow, they're going to have a very hard time and need a lot of work to have that introspection or whatever, or I don't know what we call it. But, and so...
to like allow them to see that part of themselves and within themselves.
Yeah, to like know that there's a me in there, that something can be seen. So then I'm going to give that myself that seeing. It's like, you know, it's kind of like everything with our parents. It starts as we're outsourcing it to parental relationship, and then gradually internalizing it. So I don't know if that totally matches up, or you have commentary or.
Yeah. Give me a second. I need to load it in.
Yeah, load up, baby.
Yeah.
I had a question or comment. I don't know what it's going to be. Like the example you gave of being in a romantic relationship, going somewhere, being attracted to somebody, and the thing around that saying something about how your image of yourself, or just I mean, to me, it's just happening or it's not. You know what I mean? It's. I don't have a sense of what is the function that's happening that would have you, I don't know, cut off the attraction, or what is it that's happening there that's like, if it's not true to yourself, but you were attracted, I don't get it.
Well,
David Gray.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Josh is saying you're cutting off attraction.
Okay.
Yeah. I would argue
You're cutting off the pursuing.
Yeah, actually, that it might be more nuanced than I originally thought when I gave that example. I mean, I hear what you're saying, that like an authentic attraction is arising in you, and so that's like is yourself. At the same time, you've made a commitment that's also yourself, and so your identity holds
But I know
into-
there's something you're hitting there around how you see yourself, or something that is foreign to me in a way that I know it's that there's something there. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah,
and I don't know what it is. I don't know what image is.
Well, I think to me, what I hear you pointing to is there's the question of whether the self is emerging like in the moment, or whether there's like a fixed notion of self that then, as things arise, do they conform to self? Do I let my definition of self change to accommodate the new experience, or do I let the fixed definition of self stop me from feeling whatever's emerging? Do you follow me?
Is that example about attraction or about acting on it?
I don't know. I think it's a bad example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you do another?
I'm thinking about it. Let me respond to John's thing, and there might be something that comes from that. So the way I think about the developmental view of the centers is that, like, just in brief, when you're just a body, like first couple, like month or two, you're just frustrated because the sensations around you aren't pleasant and holding you in the way that you want them to hold you. And so that provokes rage. And that rage propels you to learn or to try to set boundaries against the world, so that inside my boundary, I can be protected from the sensations that I don't want. And when you arise into the heart center, then you become aware that other people are paying attention to you, and you become aware of the me, the sense of me that is that thing that is being paid attention to, which is not. I mean, it's consolidated by the body has to happen first, because it's that me that's inside the boundary is that thing that's being paid attention to. And it's also that thing that's being paid attention to is what I start to see of myself, or and the template is like when I'm not being paid attention to, or I'm being paid attention to in a way that's like not attuning to me, then there is an experience of unworthiness. And that is like the root of shame. It's like, oh, is this me that, am I actually worthy or not? Am I not worthy of the attention of other people? And so, let's see. Each center, forgive me for being like tired and stuff.
You're cool, man.
Each center that arises helps to solve the problem of the previous center. So like, like for example, a boundary, the boundary of the body center can't be solved until you have the capacity to direct your attention, which is a heart center capacity. In other words, like a boundary is a function of what you're paying attention to and not, or it's like, that's how you numb yourself. You pay attention to that thing, which means you're ignoring these other things. And so that functions like a kind of sensory boundary when you stop paying attention to certain sensations. That's like how the heart center helps solve the problem of the body center. The mental center is what allows you to hold a consistent sense of self-image. Without the mental center, without the ability to kind of hold on to a concept of yourself, you would just be awash in gaze without any sense of a condensed, solid thing. You know what I'm saying? So this idea of like carrying around a consistent sense of self is kind of like, as Courtney was saying, kind of like a cognitive identity loop. It's like the mental center helping the heart center have a sense of consistency of self. And then things arise through the body that contradict that sense of self that's been consolidated. You know what I'm saying? And so identity.
About it going in a loop.
I kind of am. I'm saying like, it's like, all right, like the body bubbles up with some life, like my life force wants to go in this direction. Like Kaiser was saying at the club last night, like I want to dance with this person right now. And in that moment, that's just like, that's who you are. That's your identity. And if your self-concept through the mental center is that, through the kind of mental center helping the heart center know itself, is, oh, I don't reach out to people like that. I'm too shy. I don't take up that kind of space. Then there's a contradiction from the body and the mental center. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and so there you are. Like the heart is sort of sandwiched between the body and the mind in this way. And so there, in that moment, you have a choice. Are you going to follow the body, or are you going to be loyal to the self-concept that you've consolidated from the mental center? And you kind of don't know which one is the real you.
Yeah.
And so in a moment when you're feeling free and you're just following your identity as it's arising in the moment, that actually ends up feeling more true to yourself. But it's also complicated, because you sometimes follow those things and then you realize that actually, you know what, there was some value that I broke because I really, like in the example of like I'm attracted to someone and I go after them even though I'm in a relationship. And so, it's like, it's this dance. The heart centers, I guess what I'm saying is it's really complicated. There's this consolidated sense of temporal consistency of like my identity from moment to moment. And then there's also the moment to moment arising of my impulses and my sense of who I want to be right now. And often those are in conflict and there's a negotiation that happens. And all of that is kind of like the stuff of the heart center, like that's the.
And I've done, and it's not like heart types just like have it down or something, like, because we're talking a lot about heart last, like, I mean, I think what really fucks up heart types is the perspective they take on themselves. They can very their own gaze can get gaze upon themselves can get fixed in a certain way, or it can be partial, or it can be like, oh, I'm feeling attracted to all these people in this club, like I'm this kind of person now, and then they act from this place. And then it's like, oh no, that what
But that what you just said, that heart center, that's a heart center statement. I'm this kind of person now.
Yeah.
That's how it is. The heart center. If you're heart center first, anything you do gets filtered through that lens. Like, I'm this kind of person. I have to integrate this into my sense of self.
Yeah.
And so it's like, anything I'm doing, it's like any word I write in my bio, anytime I like, if I were to wink at someone right now, it's like, oh, I'm the wink guy. I'm the wink guy. Yeah,
Josh is a wink guy.
I'm the kind of person who winks. And
that's a dumb example, but like those kinds of things, like if you ever do something like that, like you wink at something, they're like, oh my god, like
yes, exactly,
fuck. Oh, I was a wink guy for a second, or whatever it is. Like, I gotta kill myself now.
Exactly.
I don't.
Is that what's meant by identity?
Yes.
Because I was going to ask.
Yes.
Like just the word identity is, I don't even know what it means. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's what's meant by identity. I mean, it's an ineffable thing. It's on the one hand, it's this vaporous kind of arising moment sense of yourself. On the other hand, you get backlashes after you do something that you followed some impulse, and you're like, wait, actually, that thing that I did was not consistent with who I am. Right. And that's the intra-personal shame that John's talking about.
I mean, I know I have stuff around identity somehow, some way, but I still don't know what it is.
It's funny because, I mean, my experience as a heart type is like I see y'all with like very distinct identities, and I see y'all through the filter of identity.
Me too. Yeah.
And sometimes I know that relating to y'all, I'm coming from an identity place, trying to connect to your identity, and I'm like, oh, that's not what they're doing. I kind of need to like recalibrate, like, oh yeah, I need to just be like a lumpy body right now or something, or a head.
Well, I get these impressions where you guys mirror something to me, as in, oh, you're this type of person because of this thing that you do consistently. Mm-hmm. And so I'll get hits of shame where it's like, oh, people are holding this opinion of me or this image of me based on actions that I've taken to say, Emeka is this type of person. And then I feel shame because I'm like, I'm not. I don't want to be associated
you feel
with that set of actions.
Right. Yeah.
Partly the thing of you're not going to get me or see all of me. Is it some of that?
Well, no, it's not that. It's because it's like I have taken some actions that don't reflect who I want others to think that I am.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe I've
hold
done
yourself to be internally.
Maybe I've taken some actions that don't align with my own values in a certain way, and it's like I regret that someone is holding this opinion of me that I don't hold of myself.
That's it, and you're kind of like in a certain way backing it or using others' gaze as a foil to compare your own how you hold your own sense of self, and if there's a distance, you get a bit of a shame back.
Yeah. It's like. But that thing that you guys are saying is like, oh, you did something. It's like, I'm this type of person now. Yeah. That seems a little ridiculous, but I get hits from that from other people. Right. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing that anymore because I don't want you to think that I'm this kind of person. Right. Or at least I won't let you see me doing that because I don't want to create the impression that you think I'm this kind of person.
I think I'm generally avoidant of, like, if somebody, I don't know, if I hear someone's impression of what kind of person I am, and it's, I don't know, it's not comprehensive, or it's not, or it's just an aspect of me. I just, laugh it off and kind of avoid it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But I guess the point is that everything you do is an aspect of your identity. So it's like if you see me going to this club every Friday, and I think, oh, I just go to this club every Friday. And then you're always coming to this club. You're the kind of person that comes to this club, whatever that means.
Yeah, you're attracted to something.
That's a part of my identity now.
Yeah.
And so, as a heart lash, you kind of like downplay these things that you do as like, that's just something I do. But if you do it and people see you doing it, then that's part of who you are now.
Each doing is an updating of the inner picture.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, you know, I mean, something I've had to learn a lot is like that's not necessarily true. Like to hold that more loosely. But for me, it was like I couldn't do X, I couldn't say X, I couldn't, because that was not an expression of me. I had to be like super authentic. And now I'm like, I can be more of like a moron. Like I can just do stupid things. I can wear whatever.
It doesn't have to mean
anything.
Right.
But that's been a very long process of being able to hold on to a me that is like from an authentic place and not an erotic place. And then to just like be able to do whatever I do, you know,
and not have it to be a statement on your identity.
Exactly, because it's like I can hold my own inner experiences of my identity in a direct way, and it's like irregardless of the circumstances. It's more like an intrinsic thing. You know what I'm saying?
The problem I run into with that is that, well, I mean, because that's my default to do things and not have it mean this is who I am. But the problem is I could do certain things consistently enough and then not realize that now it's kind of like a fixed
Absolutely, that's
part
a big
of who I am now, and I didn't realize that happened, and it's more obvious to everyone else but me because I did it long enough.
Exactly,
that it became my identity.
Exactly.
And, see, Lewis and I were talking about this yesterday. Of like the heart center is, or like what I'm paying attention to, like when I'm seeing you in terms of your identity, it's like what I see you caring about, what I see you investing yourself in, you know, and where I see you putting a lot of energy. It's like, oh, that connects to a sense of who you are and what you care about, you know? So there's kind of like this mosaic of the caring that you're expressing towards whatever you're paying attention to. And it's literally, it's attention itself. That's the heart sensor medium. You know, it's like what you are paying attention to is what I'm assuming that you care about.
Yeah.
And that is helping me paint a picture of your identity. And that's what I'm relating to.
That's a really good point because I think my perspective of heart lasts is they can start to drift into just paying attention to things they don't actually care about or know they care about. And so they're like, oh, I care about painting, but I don't paint. You know, I'm not putting attention and energy into painting. And so it like just starts to drift away in a certain, does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And also this is where talking about the heart sensor in abstraction without going into the specific types gets a little bit tricky because like I relate to that as a 3, like holding a certain sense of, oh, I care about this thing that I haven't actually done in a long time because I'm actually investing a lot of attention and energy in this other direction that I don't really care about, but it's making me successful.
Right.
And actually to contrast my experience with yours as a 4 is we have
all right, everybody put your hands together for the birthday boy.
Happy birthday
to you. Happy. This is payback.
I want to hear the end of this.
I know.
Happy.
Yeah, fuck you. I'm going to do that.
Happy birthday to you.
Thanks.
This is really outside of his identity right now, so.
My identity is painted here.
You're the kind of guy that has birthdays.
Cupcakes.
Happy birthday, John.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Now you know what it felt like.
The sting.
Yeah, there was a way that's like, if I was going to be embarrassed, John has to be embarrassed.
Thanks, guys.
What were we saying? Oh, it's about contrasting my experience. So like your journey as a 4 has been from this like super tightly held sense of identity to now being a little looser. You can do things that don't like you can just be stupid and have it not reflect on yourself.
I can edit videos, you know, I can.
Sort of, yeah.
Now you're the editor guy.
That's right. Yeah. Well, so my experience has been, you know, I existed in a state of general drift about who I was, but also experienced, or there have been like different moments in my life where I sort of realized in a like moment of profound life-changing shame that I have not been being myself. And so what I've cultivated over time is a deeper sense of like a more consistent sense of loyalty to myself. And you know, as a 3 and especially as a Bermuda, it's like it is hard to feel it and to get a consolidated sense of it. But I actually I feel like there's another phase ahead of me, which is to be more looser, in the way that you're describing.
I see, yeah,
But
yeah.
I sort of had to come back into myself
Well,
first.
you need to collect a relationship,
Yeah,
and
collecting is
then
good,
then you can hold that relationship as you do whatever. But
Right.
I think that's like that's the step that a lot of people don't do is they collect a sense of self, and then do whatever. A lot of people just do whatever, and then the self is collected haphazardly.
Right.
Well, so that would be like the three's perspective is I'm still identity obsessed, but I'm looking outside myself to figure out that which is intrinsic to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want? Sure. Yeah. It's like
So it's a weird. It's an obsession with identity.
Yeah.
That is not internally derived.
Yeah, like the way I talk about, like in my developmental views thing, like the sponge in a tide pool analogy, which I won't go fully into. But it's what I'm saying with like the heart center being situated in the field of gaze is that what gaze is doing is it is providing you are let's see how to put this. You are constructing your identity as a three-fixer via what other people see of you. And that's a problem because you're not constructing it from within. You're constructing it from the outside in. And so, the journey of three is like, you're still identity obsessed, but the journey of three is to learn how to see yourself from within to have a more consistent and consolidated and authentic from within sense of self. Yeah. And actually, I'll just to do the fourth
Identity
thing.
not dependent on gaze.
Identity, well, it is actually dependent on gaze. Identity dependent, but identity being more rooted, at least for three, in
You're seeing yourself.
how you see yourself. Yeah.
You're seeing yourself.
Yeah.
It's like an internal gaze.
I think like the sort of the enlightened version of the heart center, you could say, is letting your identity just be as it arises moment to moment without being obsessed with it in this way. And so I don't think I've said anything so far that is sort of not neurotic. Like everything that I'm describing is fixated in the heart center. So like freedom in the heart is the freedom to be who you are moment to moment. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, it seems to me like one of the issues with, I was talking with Lewis about it, that I get the sense with heart types that their preference would be, figuratively speaking, would be to hand me an 8x10 glossy photo of themselves in their ideal image, right? A still photo, and that and which would solve the problem, so to speak, of the fluidity of the heart, which is the ever-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fluidity of the heart is catastrophic. It's a huge problem if you're obsessed with trying to know who you are. The fact is the heart is fluid.
Yeah.
Your identity is changing moment to moment. It's arising, and it can't be put into a frame. But every heart type is neurotically trying to frame themselves to consolidate a sense of who they are, and so they can justify their own value to themselves.
Yeah.
But there is something like in contrast to the heart last types where there is a boundaryness to like there is an arising of self moment to moment, but there's also look, not everything's on the table. Like some things it's too heartbreaking for me to do. I can't do it. And I think there is some benefit to that. And it's not necessarily about like because of my identity, but there's like in the same way that like there's certain physical distress I won't let come into me. There's like an emotional distress that I will not do unto myself. And so it's not about identity any longer, but it is about some sort of pain that I think would be the upside of the heart in its highest form.
Why isn't it about identity?
To me, it feels like I'm hurting myself. It's not even about an identity construction, like a who do I think I am. It literally feels like pain, like an emotional pain that I'm doing to myself if I betray or act in a certain way that it doesn't feel integral to who I am. I don't know how else to describe it.
You have to think about that one from the point of view, because I know at least I can enter into what you're saying from my point of view, but it feels like I do experience it somatically on some level, but it's kind of like in the medium of feeling, as John is describing it, like the feeling of self-betrayal or the feeling of whatever. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to decouple what you're saying from or how I experience holding a sense of identity.
Like maybe another, like, this does not feel loving. Maybe that would be the closest. I can't find love in this action.
I'm not, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm having a hard time holding what you're saying, but also I'm tired, so.
It's like being out of alignment.
Being out of alignment. Is that a consequence of maybe? Is that a consequence of maybe not being? I mean, at least for me, it feels like that inauthentic feeling or that pain feeling is a consequence of not being very competent in the heart space or the image space. So maybe it's like I'm clumsily making something up really quickly that I feel like other people would enjoy, but I'm not very good at it. So that's what I've been thinking about, at least, that I'm just not this pain feeling that I'm getting and this fake feeling that I'm getting when I try to do, be a 3 or something.
Like if I hit my child, like, the heart center protects against that in its highest place. There's something in me that won't let me do that, even though I have the impulse in the moment in my body to do that. The heart, like, that would be the arising of conscience. And it's not about identity. It's about, like, I can't stand, like, that betrayal, that emotional pain. I don't know how else to describe. It's helpful to think of, like, exact examples where it's arisen in me, where I'm very glad I have it.
I think there needs to be. I think your point is important about this, the decoupling of whatever feeling, emotion, but at the same, it's to me there needs to be a balance, because it is still feelings. I mean, like as a body type and heart last, when I'm feeling something strongly, I mean, I'm as a body type, I'm really feeling that it's actually located right there, and it's a strong hit, because it's being heart last. It's somewhat foreign. Yeah,
I think partly what we're running into is just its language is really slippery, and like we're using, like, if I wanted to be really gridded about this, I would maybe, anytime we're talking about a body sensation, I would use the word sensing. If we're talking about, like, feeling your sense of self, I would use the word feeling, and then thinking for the method. But we don't typically in our, like, even in this conversation, like, feeling, emotion, sensing, sort of all, we're using the word feeling usually to mean all of those things. So
I wonder if it's still connected to identity, Courtney, because there's a way, like, because there are people who hit their children, and it's coming from a place of love because of their identity and the culture they come from. They need to do it, even if they maybe sensorily don't want to do it. They need to do it because they're trying to mold their child into something, or they're the way that they're seeing their own role as a father or mother is the person who needs to do that. So I think it's still probably attached to identity. Yeah, at least that's my gut response.
I guess I have, like, a resistance towards here. You want to do this? I guess I have a resistance towards attributing love to the heart center. I don't think it's a heart center thing. I think it's, like, bigger than all of the centers and all the instincts and all of that. So I think that example is being, like, identified as being a loving person, and that is what is stopping like, a bad act or, like, an evil act or something, or something that, like, feels misaligned with a person's sense of self. Yeah.
Any more thoughts?
Any of the folks haven't?
Yeah. Anybody want to say anything?
I have a couple of things. One, it's been interesting. When I went upstairs, I was telling your Grom, I was like, this conversation is kind of strange because I'm a heart last, and a lot of this conversation has been around heart last being spoken about by heart cores, and there is a certain way that I was like triggered by this conversation. And it's interesting too because it is affecting my image center. I felt a certain defensiveness being like, don't talk about me, like don't think that you can talk about me. And even that is kind of an interesting, that is like my own image center being activated by the conversation. Yeah.
I think there's also a thing with social instinct having some kind of connection to the heart and heart center, that it may be the one instinct of the three of them that is some kind of bridge in the instincts to the heart.
Yeah, maybe the display of it. I don't know. I really have a thing against that.
To the degree that, I don't know, social is significantly from parenting. And,
connecting, yeah.
Yeah. Relationships.
Yeah.
Framing it like that makes a lot of sense because I'm thinking of this word connectedness, right? Like social wants to connect, wants to be connected, feel connected, connect. And then in your framing of like the heart center popping up to solve the problem of the body and then the head center coming, it's kind of like, like the heart center connecting the head with the body in that kind of way, like making it consistent, the conscience, all of that. Like, where is the consistency between those things? So there's like, I'm drawing a connectedness between the self and also feeling connectedness with others, which is usually some sort of representation of the self being connected with the self and also with others at the same time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really resonates what you said. It feels like the social instinct is my connection with others, and the heart center is my connection with myself. But you kind of need to establish that connection with yourself because that's the place you connect from. And that's where you need to direct your energy in a way in order to connect with others. You need to bring up your own identity in order to like connect with others.
I mean, my favorite example, dogs versus cats, and I type all dogs as SPSO and all cats SPSX, no matter what anybody else says. And dogs, there's just so much heart.
Yeah, that's true.
With dogs, you know what I mean? It's just obvious, and with cats, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who is Montero?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
On the instincts thing, I think that the instincts kind of like fill up and provide the contents for all three sensors. And I think the way to put it is that, so David, to your point, the social instinct, I think that the social instinct and the heart center use the same kind of apparatus of gaze. And so in that way, they're kind of linked. But at the same time, I think that all three instincts are what direct your attention. And because of that, they're direct links to the heart center, all three.
Yeah, and I don't mean to make it, they're one and the same.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's murky territory.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, my last thing, and this is kind of an anecdote, but it's like bringing up this conversation I had with Lewis actually while we were walking to like our dinner. I think in my life, I'm sure there have been other ones, but I think in my life I've experienced like two very strong instances of like, oh, this is like I guess maybe the OPS word is a tidal wave, so maybe there's such thing as like a heart last tidal wave. But I've been told a few times that I would make a good therapist, and like, it's kind of interesting to hear because that's what I was originally going to go to school for, but my like energy wasn't there. I didn't feel like super enlivened by it. I knew that I could like do it in a certain way. But I noticed I got to a point in my like college experience where I realized, and high school, where I realized the only thing I was like consistently giving myself to, I don't know, I felt like very colored by in a certain way, which is maybe a hard word, was the music program, was like singing and I was really applying myself to that, and I was really like cultivating that part of myself. And I remember it being like and maybe it sounds, I don't know, very nine or whatever, but I remember it being a very significant moment for me to like, this feels like me. This feels like more authentically me. And it felt like a very brave thing to do. But that maybe is an example of like a kind of retroactive, I don't know, realization of how I've been misaligned and then realigning that, which is kind of interesting. There was something else, but now I can't remember.
I just want to see if, Lewis, you've been talking nonstop about love and care and connection.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts as a heart boy.
On love, identity, care, and
Or
connection.
just, the stuff we're talking about.
Well, I think a word that comes to mind for me a lot around the heart is passion. Maybe that makes it more clear and it's more emotionally evocative. We are defined by the things that we're passionate about. We're defined by our passions. And I guess speaking to my 3-4 side of things, and maybe this is something that applies to all heart folks, is the connection between creativity and identity. Experiencing identity as a creative act and having some intent behind what you're up to. And also, I guess my experience as a 3-4 is that I am trying to create an identity. I'm trying to follow what I'm passionate about, but I'm also kind of seeing where my taste takes me. So it feels like it's in some ways it's intentional, and in some ways it's kind of just following where I go and trusting that picture's going to emerge from it. Mm-hmm. But I think the issue that 3s have, especially 3 and 4, is that I can become too rigid about how I'm distributing my emotional energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm looking for this kind of objective self-perception and trying to calibrate how much energy am I putting into each little piece and how am I moving it around. Can I take in something new, and what kind of energy is that going to free up for something else? But I guess maybe the overall point I'm trying to say is that I think identity is something that is emerging in the moment, right? And presence is important and fluidity is important, but I think there is something to be said for creatively cultivating identity, using your emotions or your passions.
Well, creativity in the moment would be channeling the fluidity or doing something with the fluidity.
Channeling the fluidity, but using your heart center as a filter and as a kind of something that mediates between what you're experiencing internally, what you're experiencing externally, and kind of putting it into a framework and perceiving yourself and having some autonomy over how other people perceive you.
Yeah, and that's great. There's a lot of 4 in what you're saying.
A lot of 4, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just going to ramble. Is that okay? Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when you all take this, I'm fucking tired of holding this thing. Do you want to give one of them? Because they're just chilling.
All right, head last, losing train of thought.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. And okay, another piece of heart, and maybe this is more of a 4-3 thing, is wanting to have an unconscious emotional effect on other people, right? And I think that's something that there's, how can I put this? I think trying to have an emotional effect on people and trying to invite people into our world and kind of collaboratively create an emotional dynamic that it's hard to describe. The kind of
we were getting at with the phrase emotional landscape.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, maybe this is the emotional landscape thing. Yeah, I feel like I don't really understand what that is.
I think that
what
I
you
think
guys
you're
mean by
describing
it,
it.
but
I think you're like setting
that's not me what you were saying.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. That's another piece. I think the heart is also about how you frame your experience on an emotional level or on a more,
what you're inviting somebody into, like a certain shared space or something.
Yeah.
But it's like shared space of seeing.
Yep.
Instead of just like inhabiting the same physical space or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Kristen, you haven't said anything.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't said anything. I guess we coincidentally started the centers on our podcast. Check us out on Insomnia.
Oh, she's just trying to promote herself.
Non-stop Trifix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're kind of like, we learned through the instincts, kind of like what Josh was saying, that these things are kind of happening simultaneously. So like the centers are all happening at once, and so what's actually coming from what is affecting what, blah, blah, blah. So the same thing that we learned from the instincts is that like all the centers are present in one dream too. So it's like figuring out what is it, where's it coming from, what do you do with that? So we're kind of still working on that. Like our first episode already came out on it, and we kind of talk about it all in general.
What's the name of the podcast?
It's Insomnia.
Insomnia?
Yes. Yeah, so we're exploring it in more of a kind of creative way rather than like the externally how it comes up. It's kind of like how is it operating internally, like in your inner world. So that's why like going through images is important to us and what that evokes in someone and in you, and therefore in the external, how you perceive the external world. So it's like, yeah, I haven't said anything because we're still kind of like formulating that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Are you approaching it through dream work?
Yeah, and also kind of like keeping in like mind what comes up for us in daily life. Like not only, like you don't have to track your dreams to do this kind of work. Like things can come up symptomatically and stuff like and what kind of feelings, like we're all talking kind of about the feelings that you experience in responses to things or whatever, like that can be I guess evaluated in a creative way the same way you do dream work. So yeah, we're still kind of going through that, so I won't say too much.
Cool.
It's gonna be a surprise.
All right. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Your love.